Okay, this next section is looking at break-even using a graphic calculator or graphing. So what it is looking at is how you can graphically show the break-even point, because before, in the previous screencast, we looked at using the marginal income per unit, so just purely algebraic. So what this means is you get to draw a graph which has two axes. On one of the axes you'll have the number of items that you're selling, and the other one will be your dollars. And you'll have two lines going. One will be your income line, noticing that your income line starts here at 0, because when you sell no items you've got no income, so it starts at 0. And then you've got a cost line. So where the intersection is where you're going to be breaking even. So that bit there is a graphical representation of where you're going to break even. Notice that over here there's a gap between the bottom of the y-axis and there, and this is actually your fixed costs, because no matter what you do you're always going to have your fixed costs, and they start halfway up or some stage up the y-axis there, and then goes along and they go up as you make more items. So once again, the intersection point there, if you draw a line straight down to here, the number that you would get there would be your break-even point. So that's how you do it graphically, but the graphic calculator allows us to do this quite quickly and really well. So let's have a look. Using the graphic calculator, you get to be able to draw these well, but you need to be able to identify what is being made or what's being produced. So in most of these questions you're making so many surfboards or so many cakes, and that becomes X. Okay, that becomes X. It becomes your X value. So it's algebra. Don't panic if you got stuck with algebra in year 9, but this is using algebra to solve a problem and using a graph to visually represent that algebraic notation. So you use the graphing function in your graphic calculator, and so you go to graph, hit execute, and it will come up to what you need. You'll see y1, y2, and these are all lines that can be drawn. So when you see y1, y2, y3, and it keeps on going down, they just represent lines on the graph. You need to write the equation next to these in the calculator, and that will represent a line on the graph, and then it will draw it for you. So you need to convert the question, the worded question, into a form that the graphic calculator can use. The best way to do that is just to have a look at an example. So let's have a quick look at an example that you can do here. So find the break-even point by use of a graph. So it says straight away that you're going to be graphing in the following situation. Your fixed costs are $60,000, your selling price is $20, and your variable cost per unit is $15. So the two formulas that you need to know are these ones here. One, the total cost equals your fixed costs plus your variable cost per unit times by the number of units. Now we used this before in the marginal income per unit method. So the number of units is going to be X. Okay, so the fixed cost in our question is $60,000 plus your variable cost per unit, which is 15, becomes 15. So your formula is 60,000 at 15x. Don't panic, that's going to end up being y1. That's your first line. Your second line is going to come from your selling price times by the number of units. Once again, the number of units is x, your selling price is 20, and so y2 becomes 20x. So you might be thinking, oh, what does that mean, or what does it look like? Let's go to the calculator and have a look. So your calculator will look like this, and you've got to come to the graphing function. So by using the keys here, you go and choose which graphing function, go execute, and I've already entered in 60,000 add 15x for my y1. So if I go execute, oops, it doesn't do anything. So let's just go back to here. Let's go down there and put in the second line. So this is going to be my y2. Now over here, my y2 equals 20x. So you go 20 and then x. So you go to alpha and go through here until you find x, which is down there, or you can just hit this button here because that does x for you, and it puts it in there. So notice that now I've got y1 equals 60,000 at 15x, y2 equals 20x, which is all cool. So if you go execute, that will store it in there. which is the first thing to do. So you now enter those lines in to the calculator, so then you can draw a graph. Now you got to be able to draw this by going F6, which if you have a look on the calculator, F6 gives you the draw function. See how it says draw here, just here, and you hit F6 and it goes to draw. So if you hit that one, it'll draw it. And if you look at that, you can't really see what's going on. Okay, it's drawn the two lines there. It might be zoomed out too far. The scaling might be wrong. There's a whole lot of things. So you can do two ways. You've got to be able to see these two lines on your screen. So you can either reset the viewing window, which is probably the easiest thing to do, or do another method. So I'll show you the setting of the other window. What you do is you go to F3, which is your view window, and it tells you the minimums and the maximums and those kind of things. So we're going to put our X minimum as 0, because we want it to be at the 0 there. Our maximum, let's make it about 20,000. My scale, I'm going to do 1,000. Don't worry about that. My Y minimum, I'm going to go 0. I don't need to go to negatives. My maximum, I'll go 300,000. And my scale will be 1,000. So what this will help us do, this will actually help us set the viewing window, and so when we draw, we can see our two lines. So see how they draw quite quickly, and you can see that. That's one way of doing it, and that does take a bit of time because you've got to look at the scales and those kind of things. So what we are looking for is that intersection. The other thing you can do is just go Shift F2 to zoom and go auto, and it draws it automatically to see the lines. Okay, all you have to do is have the lines intersecting. It doesn't have to look nice and pretty. Your scale might be a bit wrong. All you need to do is be able to see those lines intersecting. So what do you do next? You've got your two lines growing. So on this one here, just here is our cost line, and that one there is our income line. Remembering our income line starts at the bottom at 0. We then can go and say, we've got to find out where these intersect. So our big thing is, we've drawn this graph, it looks beautiful. We want to find that value there, because when we come down there, that will give us our break-even point. Okay? So we need to find that. So that is where the lines cross. So you've got your graph that you've drawn, looks pretty cool, it looks nice. Now what you want to do is we want to go G-solve. So if we go F5, see how it says G-solve in here? If we go F5, it comes up with all these things. If you have a look, it tells us the y-intercept, the minimum, the maximums, and it's got the one that says intersect. Okay, and this is our intersection, which is F5 again. So you hit F5 again, and it will trace along and pick the intersection point. And it tells us that it's at X equals 12,000 and Y equals 240,000. So in here, you'd write down 12,000, 240,000, and that's our intersection point. Okay, so that's our intersection point, which means that we have to make our break even is 12,000 items. So for our question, for us to break even, we have to have 12,000 items. Okay, so that's how you do it, and you've got your graph there. It's pretty cool. Now, sometimes the intersection is all you need, but they might actually give you another line. They might say, okay, the original question was selling the items at $20. What if your selling price? What if your selling price was $80? What happens if you could actually sell them for a lot more? How would that affect what's going on? So you can come back to your calculator, and at the moment we've got those two there. If we go exit, we've got our $20 value here. So that means that we could enter in, instead of 20x, we could put in 80x. This is our new price, 80, hit that button, X, and then go execute. So now it's got three lines. So it's got our cost line and our income from our $20 price and our $80 price. If we go F6 and draw again, it'll draw the line. And notice we've got three lines now. Still got our cost line here. We've got our first intersection and we've got the other intersection. We want to now look at, see, where's our break-even point if we are selling them at $80? So once again, if you go, we're going for our G-solve, we're going for intersection, which is F5, and now it says here, we want to find the intersection point of Y1, which is your cost line, So you go execute, and then it says, do you want Y2? Well, that's 20x. We've already done that one. But if you move the arrow key down, it will go to Y3. It will only do the intersection point of 2 lines. So if you go execute, and then what it does is it traces it, and it gives you the X is 9.23 or 923.07 items, and that is your income at that stage. So that'll be break-even point is now 923.0 something or other. So therefore it'll be 924 items to break even. Okay, so that's the way you do it. You can put in as many lines as you want, and it all works out in the tracing. Depending on your version of calculator is how quick it solves it, but it will still work out. All you need to see are those lines on the screen. Now, for any one of these questions, you're going to be asked to draw a graph, and sometimes it's hard to see it on the calculator there, but the lines are there. So this is what I'd suggest you do. As soon as you see one of these questions, draw your axes in. Draw a line in like that and go and label that as your income. Okay, draw another line like that, and that's your costs. Do it with a ruler, that'll be cool. And then go number of items, and then dollars. So you've drawn your graph and put a title up here. You've got your graph there already, and it's ready to roll. Then when you solve it on the calculator, all you need to do is find these intersection points. You just need to find the points that are in here and write them in. So that's all you need to do. So you can shift and trace it on the calculator, find those intersection points, and it's all cool. It's all sorted for you. And then you can put in the solution. If you want, you can draw a line down here and show where it cuts even. But as long as you're drawing this graph here, that is what we're looking for when we come to the marking. You can put these details in later. You can put in your fixed costs in here, and then you can also label down the number of items once you've solved it using the graphic calculator. So that's how you solve one of these problems using a graphic calculator. It's worth going over and over again to learn the steps and practice it, and even write it down for you to remember, to learn those steps with what keys you need to place on the calculator. Remembering to use the auto function to see the lines on the screen, and even if you need to, keep on zooming out until those lines appear.